Under the Radar, bringing movies and people together, one frame at a time. Hey guys, I'm Randy Unger, and it's another episode of Under the Radar, bringing movies and people together, one frame at a time. And with me today, I have a good friend to the show, good friend to me, and a great film critic, actually. Good man, Mr. Brian Smith. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So guys, we're going to talk about the X franchise, written and directed by Ty West. It's a series of 3 horror films. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, I just want to actually acknowledge that the entertainment industry has lost a valued member. Miss Shelley Duvall has passed away, and she left behind a great legacy. She was in many great films in the 70s and 80s, most notably The Shining, Popeye, a bunch of Robert Altman films, and yeah, she was just one of a kind. She was very quirky and really added a lot to every film that she was in. She was one of the more memorable things about The Shining, and yeah, she really made that film, and she held her own against Jack Nicholson.
I agree, yeah. And Stanley Kubrick.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, just a bright spot in the industry. I never heard a bad thing about her. It's just always a pleasant presence in everything she did. She nailed it as Olive Oyl.
Yes,
that's
perfect.
I think many of us in our generation grew up with her as Olive Oyl, and she was perfect. So, yeah, and there's I say revisit The Shining definitely because I love her performance in that as well. So, yeah.
That movie, she was really one of the like an early scream queen. I would even.
She goes for it. Yeah, she goes for it.
Especially the last few minutes of that film.
Yeah, she's not labeled a scream queen. That's interesting. She's not.
Yeah.
When you mention scream queen,
she's not your typical scream queen, but she's definitely in that league.
Yeah.
She was in that league, and she left behind a great legacy, as I said, and it's a shame. So, Shelley, we will remember you. So thank you for all the beautiful work.
yeah, and she's a good lead into our
main
actress here. So yeah, it's just coincidence, really.
So yeah, speaking of horror films, we do have the X trilogy, and the newest one, the final installment, MaXXXine, is now out in theaters, and it stars Mia Goth, who's also in the previous 2 films. Now, this film is a direct sequel to X, which was the. All right, so this is tricky. So X was the first film released, but then they came out with Pearl, which was a prequel to X.
Right.
So you've got, technically the order is Pearl, X, MaXXXine. And MaXXXine focuses on Maxine Minx, who is a adult actress. She's a porn star. And she goes through a lot in the previous film X. But in MaXXXine, we basically follow her journey trying to make it big in Hollywood. She gets cast in a really big film, and as the previous 2 films, she leaves behind a wake of blood and guts and gore, and it's gruesome, yes, but in a weird way kind of beautiful to watch, because she's such a great actress, and she can, I think, do no wrong. I am not too familiar with her previous stuff. I've heard good things about Emma, and she just has a presence, and I was really happy to see her in this.
I agree. She's been in a lot of films, supporting roles in previous work, but I really think it's this X trilogy that has just catapulted her, especially in the genre.
Yeah.
When she was in that film, was it Infinity Pool?
Okay.
And it was a Cronenberg's son, his film.
Okay.
And even in that, it's like, Mia Goth is doing the Mia Goth thing. By that point, she had sort of established herself as just she can go batshit crazy in a role, and so we sort of look for that in whatever she does. But yeah, X and especially Pearl, as we'll probably get into. But yeah, I think she's really quickly establishing herself as a face and a force in the industry, and she has such respect with the horror crowd. So
yeah. So I want to go back to, well, I guess we could talk about X first, because that was the first one that was released. And in that, she's a porn star, and she's really trying to make a name for herself that way. And slight spoilers here. I mean, we're not going to spoil MaXXXine. We're going to spoil X and Pearl a little bit. But as those who haven't seen it, she's the central character in all three films. Now with X, she's the, what do they call it, the last girl?
Final Girl.
Final girl.
Yeah.
And she does very well in that role.
She's part of an ensemble, though. I don't think
Right.
they focus on her, but you're not necessarily sure how it's going to play
That's
out.
true. It's basically they go to this remote farmhouse to film a porno movie, and each one of these members of the crew and the cast gets one by one basically murdered. And we've got Mia Goth as MaXXXine, who survives that. We've got Pearl, where she plays a different character. She plays the older lady in X, and I think it was a nice companion piece, and it worked really well too, because she becomes the killer herself.
Yeah.
So again, spoilers.
I would say, I mean, I don't know going full into it, but I would
Yeah.
actually, I just revisited X and Pearl, and of the three, I mean, so far, you know, I would say Pearl is the strongest.
Yeah.
It's, you know,
Okay.
I really think it's a really good showcase of her as a performer. It's a showcase as Ty West as a director, as a creator, and you know, it's interesting. Like the style, he understands genre, he understands film and style and film language, but it never feels distracting. I don't know if you ever saw like House of the Devil. I'm sorry.
I missed that one.
House of the Devil is like his nod to like early '80s, like late '70s, early '80s, like satanic, witchy type films. And I saw it first on DVD, and it didn't quite. It was okay. It was fine. I got what he was going for. Then I saw it at SVA in 35 millimeter. That's the way to see it.
Okay.
Because that's how he shot it. That's how he intended it. And the shadows are perfect, pitch perfect, and the grain is right there. You see it. So he knows the style.
Yeah.
And I think he demonstrates that with X. He demonstrates that definitely with Pearl. Just on the on the art direction and the cinematography and the music and everything is just very cinematic, but it's never distracting to the point where you feel like he's overdoing like the homage, or it never feels like pastiche, or you know.
He has a good command of the genre.
Yeah, like X is definitely 70s. It's set in the 70s. It has that 70s feel.
Right.
In revisiting it, I do feel like maybe it could shave off maybe 10 or 15 minutes. But
Really?
that's yeah. As I was watching, I was like towards the end, I was like, as it starts, it should be ramping up a little more, and I felt like the pacing was.
I would have liked to
slow.
have seen more, maybe like 10 more minutes.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think when it started getting to where it was getting, then it was like there were moments where like characters were just sort of wandering around. I was like, this should be ramping up a little more.
Okay.
But that's his stylistic choice. I feel like Pearl is almost a perfect movie. I really, that's my personal opinion.
It's really brilliant storytelling.
Great storytelling. Mia Goth, she's the central character. It's playing. It gives her a wider playing field to delve into the psychology of the Pearl character, who is the murderer in the X film.
Right.
Really, sort of like almost like reverse. Engineered psycho, like getting to know like Norman Bates, and here we get to see her character, she's not well.
Yeah, and I mean, she does turn into a serial killer, but the events leading up to it are really heartbreaking. Like this poor girl is tormented and tortured by her mother, who's this German immigrant who's very stern and very strict.
Very good performer as well.
Yeah.
When award season was out, I was like, where are these names? Why aren't they up there? Is it the mom?
So you're talking about the mom who was Tandy Wright is the actress, and I believe she worked on X as the intimacy coordinator.
Oh, interesting. Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah. And I think Ty liked her so much that he decided to include her in Pearl.
She was fantastic. Yeah, she was a force. They really went at each other, and
so it's X is a straight up horror movie.
Yeah.
But I think I would call Pearl more of kind of like a psychological
thriller, horror,
because
you're really getting into. She's treated like it's a character study, a case study of who this person is. And the thing with X is like you can draw parallels to like Texas Chainsaw, and even fans of like Mystery Science Theater might recognize some nods to. I don't know if it's direct or not, but it was a film called The Touch of Satan.
Okay.
It's almost like a direct. There's a killer granny in that too who uses like farm equipment to kill people.
Okay.
With bad makeup and stuff. But with Pearl. In revisiting
it's kind of like its own thing, its own genre almost.
Yeah, yeah. And I
It's
think
like-
it was filmed, it was conceived and everything all during lockdown because
Yeah.
they were trapped up there. So they just put it all together, and it's you know, it's
Brilliant.
basically using the same sets, I believe, and just painted everything and made everything look.
Well, I know for X, they filmed it in New Zealand.
I think both of them. Yeah.
Oh, it's the second one too.
I believe so, yeah.
Which was, and the first one was supposed to be Texas.
Right. Right.
But hey, you could have fooled me. I mean,
Oh, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, I've never been to Texas, but it looked good.
I've never been to New Zealand, so that's
Same here.
Yeah, yeah. So it brings us to, I guess, MaXXXine.
Yeah. Well, before we get into MaXXXine, I just want to mention David Cornsweet, who is in Pearl,
yeah.
who plays sort of the love interest, the straight man in all this insanity. And I think he did a fantastic job.
Yeah, yeah.
And this made him even more interesting that he is going to be the next Superman.
That is who that is. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
So next year he'll be the Man of Steel, and it was interesting to see him in this.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like his, for me, like his audition for me.
Yeah.
You know, like he proved to me that he can don the cape.
I think he was in a Ryan Murphy show, Hollywood, on
Okay.
Netflix. I believe so.
Oh,
I believe
yeah.
he's the
You
star.
know, I
of it,
did
yeah.
see that too.
Yeah, yeah. Which was actually pretty good. But yeah, he was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right, so MaXXXine, this is the third installment, I believe the final installment of the X trilogy, obviously.
Rumored to be final.
Yeah,
Ty says he might have something
I
else,
think
but,
Ty wants to expand the universe a little, but right now this is the trilogy.
Right.
And we have MaXXXine. She has escaped the horrific events of X. She is now, it's a number of years later, I believe X was in 1979. Now, fast forward 6 years, 1985. She lands in Hollywood. She wants to kind of shed that porn star image and be like a serious actress now. She basically wants to be a star, which was quite evident in X and very evident for Pearl. So this is the recurring theme of, you know, how one wants to be famous, wants to make a name for themselves, and in doing so, just horrific things follow her. We have sort of kind of like a film noir-esque situation here. Kevin Bacon plays a private detective, and we have actually a really great cast. Which, so let's see here. Aside from Goth, we've got Elizabeth Debicki, who was Princess Diana in The Crown.
Okay.
And I believe she was in an action movie that's escaping me. But Michelle Moynihan and Bobby Cannavale, they played detectives who were on the case of finding the killer here. You've got Lily Collins.
Got Halsey.
Yeah, yeah.
I like her music.
Okay.
I was a little nervous about
Oh,
her
about
character, the fate of her character. in this
Oh
one.
yeah. Oh, she was good actually.
She was good, but we'll get into it. Yeah.
Giancarlo Esposito,
Yeah.
or is it Juan Carlo?
Juan Carlo.
Juan
yeah,
Carlo.
I believe so.
And of course Kevin Bacon. So we got a really stacked cast here, and I was really happy to see that. And you know, each character goes through an adventure, if you will, in 1985 Hollywood, which was dirty, it's grimy, it's sleazy. There's there's porn theaters all over. We've got MaXXXine, who is a porn star, and it's just a very seedy environment, but very appropriate. Kind of reminded me of a little bit of the Terminator, the original Terminator.
Yeah.
When they go into that club, when Linda Hamilton's character, Sarah Connor.
Oh, Tech Noir.
Yeah. Kind of had that vibe for me, and
Tech Noir on Pico.
yeah. But you know, I love the film noir aspect. It was a well-made film. You know, it was overly violent, but that was just fun to watch. The acting it could have been a little bit better across the board. I think Goth was obviously the highlight here, and you know, I liked it a lot. I wanted a little bit more Kevin Bacon, but overall, I think it was worthwhile. So I'm just curious, Mr. Smith, your thoughts on MaXXXine?
My thoughts on MaXXXine. Well, I went in with a sort of like, I love, you know, old like 70s, 80s giallo films, and for those who don't know, giallo is like sort of a genre of horror slasher films from the Italian perspective, and you know, directors like John Carpenter and Brian De Palma, of course, they've all been inspired by them.
Yeah.
So I was sort of won over by the marketing. I thought the trailer really did a good job of selling what I thought was going to be much more of a traditional sort of slasher film, but in the '80s style, in that slasher sort of
Right.
vein. So I was a little surprised that it wasn't quite that. I mean, I won't spoil too much, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it kind of left me wanting a little bit more. Like you
Right.
said, you said it was violent. It actually, I anticipated more violence.
Okay.
A lot of the violence that happened in the film are off screen.
Right.
And so there's no, like, there aren't really a lot of, it doesn't devote a lot of time to, like, set pieces or anything like that. I was just thinking about it earlier today. The closest to what I imagined this film was going to be in terms of making me feel uncomfortable was the Maniac remake with Elijah Wood that came out, like, a number of years back. I don't know if you,
What was it?
it was a film called Maniac. It was a remake
Okay.
of an old 80s film called Maniac as well.
Okay.
That was, they're both unpleasant films, you know, slasher films, but they really get to that uncomfortable place in terms of slasher films, and that's where I thought Ty was going to. I just thought he was going to go for it because
Yeah.
he's sort of known for, you know, he can make those moments where you feel like really uncomfortable, and I was kind of surprised that this one didn't quite have that. And I thought
Yeah.
Mia, I felt she was kind of like a co-star in her own movie. You know, I think by this point, especially coming off of Pearl. Pearl was such a showcase of her performing, her acting, her range, and the writing and his directing, that I feel like we didn't really get a full arc for the MaXXXine character. It was
Okay.
kind of like simply told story. You kind of can tell who's behind everything.
Yeah.
And I felt like they didn't give her enough to really shine in this one. She really goes for it in Pearl, and here it's like,
Yeah.
I get it, it's a different character, but there were a lot of different elements that I just felt like fell by the wayside. You know, I feel like a lot of the actors were kind of wasted. It was just my initial impression of it, to the point where I didn't end up taking it home with me. You know,
Yeah.
I didn't really.
It's basically an ensemble cast.
It's an ensemble cast. It's stylish. Some of the needle drops felt a little wonky, but I don't know. It didn't quite live
Yeah.
up to. If you watch the trailer for MaXXXine is fantastic.
Right.
It uses, what is it, Laura Branigan's Self Control. Which is in and of itself is a great song of that era, because it's I can't describe it, but it just works for this type of genre and
Yeah.
the way it's presented in the trailer. And then the movie itself just doesn't quite live up to that trailer. And, you know, the marketing team got it. I
Yeah.
just felt like Ty and maybe, and then the writing, it just didn't quite go
I
for
know. I was really expecting like a Coen Brothers type of production,
it. Yeah,
but that kind of fell flat.
yeah.
Yeah, like you said, the trailer is very impressive, and it definitely makes the film seem more exciting than it is.
Yeah, I mean,
It's-
yeah,
It's
yeah.
unfortunate.
I mean, there is, you know, there is bloodshed, there's
Yeah.
gore. I would say there's like maybe three notable sequences of, like, you know, gory, bloody scenes, bloodshed on screen, and then the rest is sort of like off screen, and you see, like, you know, decomposing corpses and things like that, which is kind of again, it was kind of like anticlimactic. You know,
Right.
I was definitely expecting much more. Like,
Yeah.
like Terrifier 2 level gore. I guess, you know, no one can reach that level.
Yeah, it kind of seems like Ty, you know, like he tacked this on to the previous two films.
Yeah.
Just to call it a trilogy.
Right. It was like, but I was surprised that he showed such restraint, where he could have just.
I know he didn't full out. Yeah, he
Especially
could've-
coming after. I don't know if this was, maybe he hadn't seen the Terrifier films, but like Terrifier 2 right now, and those films are like, I guess those are like the status right now, where you have to
Yeah.
like try to beat that, and no one has somewhere, you know, to make it, in terms of making the viewer uncomfortable, and the
Yeah.
excess. I was totally open for the excess, and it didn't happen in this one. I'm not knocking it, but it just didn't deliver on the promise of
Yeah.
what it was trying to do, you know, and didn't really do much for the character.
So I'm assuming that this was made, you know, post-pandemic. So maybe that had something to do
Maybe.
with the production.
I think you got more money for this too.
Yeah, well, you got a great cast.
Yeah, yeah.
That's probably where most of the money went.
Right, right.
It was just, it's severely lacking.
I just feel like, in terms of its setting, I feel like there have been Scream films that have like done the Hollywood backlot type
God.
thing a little bit better. You know, even if not to perfection, but I feel like, you know,
Really?
at least it had the. I felt like he couldn't figure out if he wanted to be a slasher film or noir, giallo,
Yeah.
or a character
You know what?
study.
I think the closest comparison might be Scream 3, which was also kind of meta. And
Yeah.
like, it was in that behind-the-scenes look at, you know, Hollywood and what can happen behind the scenes, what's real, what's not, what's going on.
Right.
Is there like a bigger picture here? Is there a conspiracy?
Right.
Which this movie does tap into, but I wanted them to go a little further than that.
I mean, if anything, I was talking to a friend. I was like, the funny thing is that it almost seems like Showgirls has more depth, in terms of like showing you the seedy side of an industry.
Oh my God.
And that film itself, that film itself was actually technically based on Hollywood. Not so,
Right.
it was just set in Las Vegas, but I feel like I got more character darkness and seediness out of that than I did here.
Interesting.
It all felt very superficial. It felt like very surface level. Again, I'm not writing the term paper on it or anything, but it felt like, okay, either he's doing the surface level, this is what happens when you get to LA and it's just dark and it's not, real. But I just wanted a little more, I think I wanted a little more character development. I wanted to feel, and especially watching X, which takes a lot of time you get to know the ensemble before they start getting
That's
off.
true.
You really get to know them and their quirks and their personality and that sort of thing as real people.
Right.
And that didn't quite happen here, maybe because the cast is too big.
There's too many actors running around. But for me, I think the most interesting character was Kevin Bacon's private eye.
Well, he knew what he was. He knew. He was just having fun.
I think they could have focused the movie on him, really, because there's a scene with him and Goth in this like hotel restaurant.
Right.
They meet for brunch, and just the back and forth between those two. That was actually my favorite part of the movie.
Yeah.
That one scene was great.
Even if he had if there was more of a twist with the character, but everything was again like surface level. He was just that character. He stayed that character all the way through. There's no one I felt like who was on her side. Or could help her. I thought Elizabeth Debicki. I thought as she plays the movie within the movie.
She's like
director.
the artist.
The artist, and I thought she had some great scenes. I was waiting for like something to happen, like a twist with her. Nothing really went there, but she played like a really good mentor.
Right.
So I guess if anything, she was like the better,
I'd say she was very strong. Bacon was great. Juan Carlo Esposito was wasted, in my opinion.
I mean, he wore a wig,
He had a
right?
weird wig, and he
that's-
was on screen for like 3 minutes.
I was worried when, like I said, the trailer was great,
Right.
and I was like all psyched for it. I was like, please don't ruin the trailer, don't give us another one. And then I started seeing like character posters, and they looked like they were like on a back lot. It looked like a comedy movie, and it was like I really started getting worried by the marketing because I was like, I don't think this is going to be a scary movie like it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And
It's really just a splatter film. There's no scares in this, I'd say.
It's lacking the suspense. There is some splatter, there's some gore, but it's like really 3 pointed moments of splatter, and then the rest is like there's no suspense or no tension to get to.
There's no glue to tie everything together.
It's got the style. There's the scene, she's in a peep show and she's doing a dance, and there's the killer with the trench coat and the hat. And it has all
the gloves.
It's got all the tropes of the giallo, which go for it. Give us more neon, give us more blood, blood red coloring and all that stuff. Just go for it.
I wonder why Ty kind of restrained himself from
It
really
definitely
going
felt
the full
It felt
throttle that we
restrained,
wanted.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what happened.
And I just want to mention Michelle Monaghan and Bobby Cannavale. I'm probably butchering that.
The Keystone Cops.
Yeah. They were such stock characters. I was not interested in them at all. And I know they were there to just move the plot along, but they were just kind of like furniture.
I guess in some giallo films and films of this nature, particularly in the 80s, it's easy to make the characters, the cops, like sort of ineffective, and that's essentially who they were. I mean, they tried to give Michelle some moments of levity with Mia, but overall they just ended up like by the end I was like, just who are these characters? They're like cartoon characters.
Yeah, right. They could have been animated.
That whole ending was just it was everything the way it went. It was just like, okay, all right.
I mean, their interplay, the exchanges that they had were kind of funny. It was cute, but aside from that,
there were funnier cop exchanges in Scream 3.
That's true.
That's
very
really,
Patrick Dempsey.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But I don't want to seem like I'm knocking. Like overall, this was a really impressive feat to create this world that Ty did, especially under the restraints of the constraints of the first two.
Right. And it's all started in 2022.
And just immediately
with X, and then I think Pearl was like greenlit during post-production of X.
Yeah.
Because they knew right away that this could be a winner. This franchise.
And then they had a little teaser at the end of Pearl in the theater for MaXXXine, so it was like pretty fast moving. Again, his style. And this is not a knock on Ty. I think, some directors have like their signature thing that you can tell. Oh yeah, I'm watching a De Palma film or a Spielberg film or Hitchcock. With Ty, I feel like his overall style is that he knows cinema, he knows genre, the genre that he's sort of emulating.
Right.
It never feels like it never feels tacky. It never feels you
Okay.
know, like distracting or like, oh, he's doing the '80s thing or whatever, or the
Yeah.
'70s thing. It always feels authentic
Yeah.
as much as it can be.
Right. That's why I love X so much, because it's such a throwback to Texas
Yeah.
Chainsaw Massacre and The Hills Have Eyes and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
But Pearl, I think, of the three, and probably of his filmography, I think Pearl is a very accomplished work, just in terms of what he was able to accomplish in terms of art direction, the style. It's got a heightened style. That's like you're watching a movie of that era,
Right.
that Hollywood. It's like you're watching a movie that she would love in that era from Hollywood.
Now, I'd say out of the three films, Pearl has the most interesting, character arcs. Character development is really strong in that one.
And I timed it. It's like an almost 8-minute the famous monologue
Oh.
at the table. Yeah, I ran a stopwatch just to see.
And also, it's funny that you mentioned timing of stuff like that, but the Pearl's iconic smile at the end lasts for 1 minute and 51 seconds. It felt a lot longer than that.
It did. It definitely. It definitely did, because it ends a lot sooner, and then the credits go dark.
Right.
I was surprised by that.
Because
but,
she does kind of like a little head nod to Ty to tell him to, can you cut? Can
Right,
you
right.
cut? This is really painful.
yeah, but and Tyler Bates is the composer who really scores her madness in that moment. It's just he
Right.
scores he gives it a lot. The second one has such a lush score to it, and it's beautifully done, very Hollywood, very operatic almost. And then that ending.
That's a crazy ending.
Yeah.
When Howard comes back from war, and he just sees she's
just-
bloody
I
and
mean, it's
psychotic
the
look in her
house,
face.
Yeah, the family's just sitting around the table. and
Right.
So much is
The pig with the rod, the maggots on it. It's really
Yeah.
the imagery in Pearl is insane.
And there's such a distance between Pearl and X that's like, man, he stuck with her.
Right.
He stayed
Yeah,
with her,
he did.
Yeah.
All the way to X for sure.
Yeah.
So we have a couple minutes. I just want to know, how would you rank the X trilogy?
I would say Pearl X MaXXXine.
Yeah.
I was going to joke and say Pearl X Scream 3 MaXXXine, but I'm kidding. No, Pearl is the strongest, I think.
Right.
X, it starts it off, but I think Pearl X and then MaXXXine.
I agree with you on Pearl there, but I'd say X is the most fun of the three.
Okay.
MaXXXine's probably the weakest, and but yeah, I'd say X, Pearl, MaXXXine.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe X and Pearl, man, they're just really neck and neck. I know they're very different, but at the same time kind of similar, and just great filmmaking right there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just wanted to check in with you, Brian, regarding any plugs this week. Anything you want to mention?
So I'm with the New York City Horror Film Festival, and submissions are open right now. We're open till September 1st. So we're, the team, we're screening films, reading scripts, get them in via Film Freeway. So yeah, and the festival itself will be in first weekend of December or so.
Cool.
That Look Cinemas, we hope.
Right.
And I'm just going out to some festivals. I got some scripts of my own and films and things like that. So you'll see me around.
Yeah, awesome, Brian.
Yeah.
And we have a bunch of really cool horror movies coming up today, I think.
Oh yeah.
We've got Long Legs, which I'm not sure if we're going to review that
I saw
yet.
it.
You did? You saw it?
I saw it. Yeah.
Oh, we're going to have to talk about it. And Heretic is coming out, and of course Alien Romulus. So
And
a lot.
Cuckoo.
And which one?
Cuckoo.
Cuckoo. I have.
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't heard that one.
Yeah, it's from Neon. It's like Neon is like killing it right now with the marketing on horror.
Oh,
so,
and you know what? Speaking of production, distribution companies, A24, thank you, A24, for these three fine films. They are responsible for the X trilogy, and they've done great horror stuff in the past decade, like Hereditary, Midsommar, etc. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out to A24. So keep up the good work, please. All right, so plugs on my end. You can check out new episodes of Under the Radar on Slam Radio through SiriusXM every Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Also, you can catch the video version of the podcast on Manhattan Neighborhood Network, and that's every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. And feel free to go to the Under the Radar YouTube channel, subscribe, and share. So Brian, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, anytime, man. So this was great, and go see MaXXXine. It's in theaters now. It's awesome. I'm Randy Younger. This has been Under the Radar, bringing movies and people together, one frame at a time. We'll see you next time. Take care.